Cracked him. He's behind that car. Car coming in right now.
Yo, what's up guys? We're back with some more Warzone educational content. I've gotten a lot of questions on this one, so I figured I'd make a video. That is, what settings I'm using and what sensitivity is best in Warzone. So we're gonna run through all the best Warzone settings and help you find the perfect sensitivity for you. Also, if you're not already, don't forget to like and subscribe to the video and turn your notifications on. YouTube analytics shows about 90% of people who watch my videos aren't subscribed. It doesn't cost you anything and it really helps me out. So if you don't mind taking a second and clicking that subscribe button, I'd appreciate it. Let's get to the settings. Okay, so keep in mind I'm on PC playing on keyboard and mouse. I'll go through the controller settings as well and how to find the sensitivity. But if you're on console, you may not have some of these same graphical settings. That's just how it works. PC has some more settings they can play with. But we'll roll through them anyway. Any of these you do have, you can adjust. So I run 120 field of view. I would say you need to run a minimum of 105 if you're on PC for the most advantage. The higher your field of view, the more you can see around you. However, the smaller your target appears because it makes it appear like it's farther away, even though it's not. So for example, a target 20 meters away looks more like it's 30 meters away if you're used to 100 FOV and you change to 120. That's not a mathematical equation, that's just a rough guesstimate. So essentially, it can be a little bit harder to aim at the targets because they seem smaller, but you're getting more information and being able to see more around you at any time. So I always recommend the highest FOV that you can stomach. Took a while to get used to 120 for me, but now that I'm used to it, I wouldn't go back. So brightness is gonna depend on your monitor more than almost anything. I pretty much ignore what this says on the side for the not visible, barely visible, easily visible for the Modern Warfare logo, because Warzone is such a dark game in general. I like to run my brightness higher. So don't just copy my settings, you're gonna need to play with it. Different monitors have different levels of brightness, and the monitors have their own individual settings. But I would recommend going something like Plunder and jumping into an area you know is dark, like a back corner of Superstore, and turning up the brightness. Don't have it so high that everything's washed out, but high enough that you can see into the shadows. For your colorblind mode, most people have this off. I like to run Deuteranopia. I'm not actually colorblind. I just did some testing in just different weirdly lit areas of the map, some dark areas, some areas where the sun really washes things out. And this one kind of gave me the best color spectrum of being able to make out what is a player and what is a bush or a rock or a tree. Test it out for yourself. Again, I'd recommend just hopping in Plunder, running around areas of the map and trying the different settings. Or you can just copy me and take my word for it that Deuteranopia works the best for me. Okay, this is an important one. Your mini-map shape. By default, it's circular. Go and change it now to square if you haven't already. This tip's been going around since the first season of this game, so most of you have probably heard it. But in case you haven't, I'm just gonna say it again. Change your mini-map to square. You can see a much larger area. In fact, you can tell in this preview. On the square mini-map, you can see so much more. It's something like 30% more area of the mini-map that you can see. The more knowledge you have of what's going on around you, the better you can make it a good decision. Okay, and I would recommend turning on your server latency and packet loss so you can see the ping you're getting to the server and the percentage packet loss. It can help answer some questions if you feel like you might be hitching or skipping a little bit and see if it's a ping related issue. Okay, so again, some of these settings are only going to apply to PC players, but a few of them are available on console, so let's go ahead and run through them anyway. Always have it on full screen. Don't use windowed full screen. Don't use borderless, extended window, any of those. They actually increase the input lag, which means the time from you clicking your mouse button or clicking a button on your controller will be delayed from actually showing up on screen. So always run in full screen mode. Set this refresh rate to whatever the max refresh rate of your monitor is. I have a 240 hertz monitor, so I have it set at 240. If you have a 60 hertz, set it to 60. Keep your render resolution at 100. You can increase your frame rate by lowering this render resolution, but know that graphically the game will look drastically worse the lower it goes. So if you can, keep it at 100 so you can still make out everything and have that crispness to it. Turn off your VSync. I disable my NVIDIA highlights. Having that enabled actually reduces your frame rate because it's taking small record clippings as you go, whether you clip them or not. Okay, now for the actual graphical settings here. My streaming quality is set to low, my texture resolution low, texture filter anisotropic normal, particle quality low, bullet impacts and sprays, I have them enabled. You can disable them for a little extra FPS, but honestly, I like using those little sprays just to troll people. Tessellation disabled, on-demand texture streaming disabled. Keep in mind, I'm doing all of this because I want maximum frame rate and maximum visibility of players. So obviously you can get the highest frame rate by just putting everything to low or disabled. But then you lose some of the graphical clarity and being able to pick out players among the landscape. So any of the settings here that I have higher than just disabled or the lowest setting is because they helped improve the clarity of the game or allowed me to see better in dark areas. Okay, I have shadow map resolution on normal because I've noticed a few times while testing it that you can definitely make out what is a player and what is a tree or shrub by their shadow. I found this increases frame rate to cast your spot shadows and sun shadows. The very first time you play with this enabled, it will decrease your frame rate. So hear me out on this. It is actually actually storing those textures. First time you play with it, you might notice 5 or so less frames, but after that, they've been about 5 higher than normal. So I've left these enabled. Particle lighting I have normal. I turn off my ray tracing, my ambient occlusion, and my screen space reflections are set to low. Anti-aliasing is on 1x. I recommend 1x. It doesn't seem to hurt frame rate much at all and really does help with clarity and being able to see sharp edges. Depth of field is disabled. This one's really important in my opinion. If you have it enabled when you're zoomed in, everything around where you're zoomed on looks really blurry, which can really hurt when you're trying to pick out objects. Turn your filmic strength all the way down, turn off your motion blur, weapon motion blur, and your film grain. All of these things just add this weird blurry, hazy filter over everything that makes it hard to see. Audio cues are huge in Warzone. I can't tell you how many gunfights I've won just off of being able to hear someone's footsteps, a door opening. So first off, before you get into this, make sure you're using a good quality headset. If you've got a $10 pair of knockoff earbuds or something, they're just not going to do the same thing. Get a good quality headset. If you've got any questions on what counts as a good quality headset, post them in the YouTube comments. I'll reply back. I'm a pretty techie person. But you can get a good headset for about $50 that'll do the job. For the audio mix, I would recommend Boost High. I've tested all of these at different times. Boost Low is another good option, but I've noticed High really picks up those sprinting footsteps, that clicking noise as in the higher frequency range, and you really do pick it out better. I have my music volume completely off. It's just been a distraction at different times. Besides that, this mix is just gonna be personal preference. Do what you need to do so that you can hear the game volume better than anything and that you can still hear team comms. Okay, now we're gonna get into sensitivity. This is a very hotly debated thing. Keep in mind, I'm on keyboard and mouse, but I know a good amount about controller sensitivity as well. Most of this interchanges anyway. You have actually 3 sensitivities. You have your actual base free look sensitivity. So when people talk about, for example, 6:6 sensitivity, that's 6 in the horizontal, 6 in the vertical. That's kind of the gold standard right now in Warzone on controller. And that sensitivity is your free look and your hip fire sensitivity. That's just when you're running around the map, that is your sensitivity. Then you have ADS multiplier low zoom, which applies for your iron sights or all your low zoom optics like red dots, holographics, the VLK, anything under 3.25. And then you have your multiplier for high zoom, which is all your sniper optics, anything above 3.25 zoom. So you take these as an actual multiplier. If your low zoom is 0.8 and your base sensitivity is 6, that means you have an effective aim down sight sensitivity of 4.8. And the same thing with the high zoom. So how I recommend finding the perfect sensitivity for you. I would start with something pretty close to what you see most of the pros use. 6.6 is used by just about any controller pro right now. There's a few who are running a very high sensitivity, but this is kind of the gold standard, as I said. Start with that 6.6 sensitivity, run around, see if it's comfortable for you. This sensitivity should feel slightly higher than you're comfortable with because this is your free look. This is not how you're going to be hard aiming at anybody. This is you hip firing, flicking, jumping around. So this needs to be a pretty high sensitivity. Then once you find a comfortable free look sensitivity that you can flick around quickly, do a 180 and turn on somebody, that's when you then adjust your ADS sensitivities, and you can crank these down as low as you need them to make it a slower look. In general, lower sensitivity is easier to aim, but if your sensitivity is too low, it'll take you too long to get on target. So you need to find that balance. So I always recommend having a high free look sensitivity and a low ADS sensitivity, so you can look around quickly, hip fire, spin around on your opponent, but then also have that controllability when you're aiming down sight. I'll show you the actual settings I use on keyboard and mouse. I'm running a 6.96. I don't know why I'm not just running 7. And then my low zoom multiplier is a 0.86. My high zoom multiplier is a 0.68. So this means my free look sensitivity is fairly high. I can flip around and do a 180 very easy within the movement on my mouse pad. And then I have a slightly lower sensitivity for when I'm aiming down sight with my iron sights or low zoom optics, which still allows me to move and track a moving vehicle or a flying target. And then I have a very low sensitivity for my high zoom, so things like sniper scopes when I'm using the HDR or Kar98, which allows me to more steadily track a target. Okay, the last section we're gonna go through is on some of your behaviors. I would say all of these, except for one setting, are required. There's one that is optional, and we'll get to that in a second here. Slide behavior, you want this on tap. You don't wanna have to hold your slide button to slide. You wanna be able to tap slide when you're slide canceling. Makes it way more efficient. Crouch behavior, toggle. This makes it so you don't have to hold your crouch button the whole time while you're crouching. You can just touch it, crouch, walk around so you don't accidentally stand up and sprint and make a lot of noise. Same with prone behavior. Okay, this is probably the hotly debated one, automatic sprint. A lot of people like to run just automatic sprint. I like automatic tactical sprint. Now, what this means is whenever your tactical sprint is available, for example, right after you've slide canceled, it will automatically enter that tactical sprint, which is more efficient than having to click a button because obviously the computer will do it as soon as it's available. So what's the downside? The downside is your sprint to fire time is longer from a tactical sprint. And if you're using something like a shotgun, it can really screw with you because you have to actually come out of that tactical sprint before you can shoot. How I've overcome this is I've learned to either slide or jump when I'm about to shoot because this cancels the tactical sprint, allows me to shoot instantly, and makes me harder to hit. This takes a little bit of learning to get down, so experiment with it. There's nothing wrong with running automatic sprint, but I think for maximum efficiency in your movement, you should learn to use automatic tactical sprint. The other one that I see a lot of people leaving on the default setting that I think they should have disabled is parachute auto deploy. When this is enabled, your chute will automatically deploy a certain distance above the ground. The problem with this is if you're trying to swoop in and get a gun first, get a contract first, or beat somebody else to the ground for any reason, and that's enabled and theirs is disabled, they can deploy their chute way lower than you can because they're manually deploying it. So I'd recommend having this disabled. Just be aware that you have it disabled so that you have to manually deploy your chute before you hit the ground and don't break your legs. Okay, that's it for my settings guide. If I missed anything or anything you guys want to know, please ask the question in the comments below and I'll get to it as quick as I can. If there's any other videos you'd like to see, again, put it in the comments below. I'd love to make more content for you guys. Feel free to come check me and Storm out at twitch.tv/modedrummy, and we'll see you over there.